Having someone disappeared isn't a normal situation at all. Having someone disappeared in a foreign country is even worse. It's always the first thought in the morning and the last thought at night that he hasn't been found. Seamus was the second youngest child of our family. He was the youngest boy and I was the youngest girl. And we did everything together. One of my sisters said, you know, when you saw Seamus, you saw Anne, so we were like two peas in a pod. Right up until he went away, really. It was 83, this was. He got a job as a teacher in Paris. He was teaching English and he seemed to be enjoying that. Got himself an apartment and he was having a normal life. Moved in with Cecilia Moore. Cecilia was his girlfriend and the two of them seemed to be happy. We thought it was a new opportunity for him to be away from here and just to, you know, have a new outlook in life.
Oh, God visit Ulster at this time. Remove from us the tyrants who would seek to take away our liberty.
In his last years of school, it was at the very beginning of the Troubles, it would have been 1972. The Unionists in Northern Ireland had control. Catholics weren't allowed to vote, we weren't allowed to have houses, and we couldn't walk down certain streets, you know, even within our town. People began to protest. And Seamus became very involved in that world. He became just very involved in the political injustices of our society. He really was out to help the underdog. And one of the keys to his philosophy was that people needed to be educated. You know, education is the path to freedom.
Have some British socialists learned nothing from the last 14 years of Irish struggle? John O'Mahony's attack on backward Irish nationalists, coupled with his defence of Sinn Féin, was a regurgitation of those prejudices of British reformism, dressed up in the usual sociological jargon that so often masquerades as Marxism.
In 1985, I'd gone over to Paris. I met him at the Sacré-Cœur church. I remember him standing on the steps and he had a wee shopping bag and he had the eggs for the breakfast and all, everything was in the bag. Both of us went then to his flat and we just sat and talked and gabbled all night. That was the last time I saw him then, was that day.
Bonjour, je travaille avec Seamus et on commence à s'inquiéter car on ne l'a pas vu depuis quelques jours.
A girl from the school that he worked in told Cecilia, his girlfriend, that Seamus hadn't turned into school.
Donc je vous appelle juste pour avoir de ses nouvelles et pour savoir si tout va bien.
She went to the police and reported him missing. And then it sort of snowballed from that point, really. He had left everything. He'd left his passports and money. Everything was still there. He just walked out with the coat and that was that. In those days, you didn't have the internet or anything, so you were really in the dark. My mother would have been just hoping that he was going to phone, you see. She always wanted him to phone. And then she started talking about, I think maybe he's joined the Foreign Legion. Cecilia had been given information concerning bodies that had been taken out of the Seine and She actually went and she had to look for a few, bodies, but they weren't him. There were a few false alarms during that time when we thought he was found, but there was nothing really. It must have been September, October. Cecilia got word that clothes had been found by children playing beside the River Seine. We were taken to a police station in Rouen, and the clothes were all laid out, And I had the photograph with me, the last photograph of him alive. The jacket that was there was the same as his, but had the same emblem on the lapel. And there were 2 holes in the hood, one at each side. You can still see it. I know. When I saw that, I thought, right, he's dead. He had a life that we knew nothing about. We've only learnt about his background from newspapers, really. He was part of the IRSP, the Irish Republican Socialist Party, and they were the political wing of the INLA, the Irish National Liberation Army. He had been involved with the 1981 hunger strike. He had been one of the representatives that went into Long Kesh to talk to the hunger strikers. But the INLA organisation was fragmenting at that time, and there were different factions. And there was one that they were notoriously violent. They had carried out atrocious killings. They would have killed Protestants for being Protestants. People in the organisation, a lot of them just did not agree with that. Seamus decided that he wanted to break links with the IRSP, and he actually wrote them a letter and resigned from the party, and because he didn't like the organisation as it was.
Accompanied by the Belfast priest, Father Des Wilson, Mr. Ruddy's 5 sisters, 2 brothers and his girlfriend visited the IRSP office on the Falls Road.
We were asking the IRSP and the INLA, did they know anything, and if they had any information to let us know.
Mr. Ruddy was a former member of the party's Ard Comhairle. He resigned from the group in 1983 and published a letter at the time critical of the organisation and the political wing of the INLA.
We, the family of Seamus Ruddy, have asked the IRSP to help us to find out the whereabouts of our brother Seamus. And if he is dead, we request those responsible to enable us to have the body returned for Christian burial. We are not concerned about the politics. We only want Seamus returned safely to us.
So then we arranged a meeting with the INLA, and myself and Sean, and we went to a priest's house in Belfast. We explained about these clothes being found, and we asked them face to face, would they help us, because we didn't know where he was. One of the men pointed at me and said, if you go to France, you're dead. And pointed at my brother Sean and said, and you're dead, and all your family at risk. I don't know where the strength came, but I says, well, it's my brother that I'm looking for. It's not a member of an organisation. We need to do this, and we will be doing it. I just got up and walked out then. Once the death threat was given to us, we knew there was an involvement of the INLA. They told us not to go to the media, and we weren't allowed to speak about it. And I think not speaking about it I think it was the worst thing because it meant that we were unable to ask about him. I started writing letters to the government and the Foreign Affairs in Dublin and all of that. It was an awful, awful time. Like every morning I would go to school and I'd put the children into the car and I would check under the car because you just didn't know. I remember one night my husband was away. My next door neighbour phoned and said there's a motorcyclist outside your house. And at that time the INLA had been killing people from the back of motorcycles. I just sat in the stairs the whole night in case they came up the stairs and the children were there, you know, so that was a very, very frightening night. For about 10 years there was nothing really. Every now and again there would be a report that a body had been found and we would have had to wait then for confirmation that it wasn't him. The fact that we were silenced meant that we didn't discuss it. We only discussed it among our family. I would not even have discussed it with my work colleagues. You know, people wouldn't have knew anything about this. And I really think that that has taken its toll.
I'm pleased to announce that the two governments and the political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
The so-called war is finished, done with, and gone.
In 1999, the Good Friday Agreement was put in place. There was a list drawn up and Seamus's name was on the list of the disappeared. Once we had government back, and it really was from then that we began to get our voice again.
This process came about as part of the Good Friday Agreement, when the two governments agreed with the former paramilitaries that they would establish a commission to try to find and repatriate the disappeared of the Northern Ireland Troubles.
There were a lot of searches. Searches were taking place all around Ireland.
Every part of the process is undertaken under the supervision of a forensic archaeologist. We rely entirely on people contacting the Commission to tell us what happened, what they know, if they can help in any way. Obviously, we're very anxious to speak to them. This is wholly and solely a recovery and repatriation process. It's not a criminal investigation in any shape, size or form. There are lots of bits and pieces to talk about, and we'll see how it all unfolds.
All the disappeared that have been found would not have been found if Jeff Knupfer hadn't been on the case.
The overwhelming feeling is one of relief. All the families who have had loved ones remains returned to them. They know that their loved one has been killed. On the one hand, they're now getting confirmation of that, which is a terrible thing. On the other hand, they have been denied the chance for a Christian burial for, in some cases, 40 years. So it is a bittersweet moment for all the families involved.
In 1999, we got information from the INLA or IRSP. We were given a map with an X on it, and it was in a small forest in France, about 10 minutes away from Rouen. The French had a small search, and then in 2000 there was another search. In our case, because it's in France, there's an awful lot of red tape involved in it, so it's not as easy as the searches that have taken place here in Ireland. They dug where the X had been, really, on the map. It only lasted 6 hours. And after 6 hours, they just said he's not here.
So far as the case of Seamus Ruddy, we have undertaken some work in a forest near Rouen. We've only searched a very small area. It was a very precise piece of information we've received, which didn't prove to be accurate.
I had gone over to France in 2000, really to take him home. I really thought I was going over to take him home. And it was that sort of disappointment of not getting him home it was a big, big one. You know, because you know he's dead. And he's somewhere where we can't get to him. It means that we're just not at peace. We just can't grieve right. It just got too much for me. I couldn't work. And I had to retire from teaching. I was only 49 when I retired. But, you know, I haven't regretted doing that because it meant that I've spent a lot of time with the families of the disappeared and with the campaign to help find other people who are disappeared. I needed to retire to keep this campaign going.
More has now emerged about exactly what brought investigators back to Normandy for their first search in almost a decade. We understand help came from the groups Seamus Ruddy was a member of, the Irish Republican Socialist Party and the INLA, the organisation responsible for his murder.
The task of locating the bodies of the disappeared has been likened to looking for a needle in a haystack. But this latest information may have made the haystack here in France an awful lot smaller.
Myself and my husband went over for a few days. We were on our way back to Ireland and we were sitting on the train, and then I got a phone call that remains had been found. So we got off the train and we went back to the search site.
Kieran, I'm sure you've imagined a moment like this many times. What was it actually like in reality?
In the beginning it was disbelief. Words you wanted to hear but you didn't want to hear. Mixed emotions all round. It was incredible.
I'm delighted. It's closure. And it's just sad that my mummy wasn't living to see it, like, you know.
It's understood investigators will remove the remains from the site tomorrow. A process of identification and post-mortems will then take place before his family hope to bury him here in Uri.
I want to begin this Mass by welcoming all of you who have come here today, family and friends of Seamus.
This journey has lasted 32 years. Special thanks must be given to those who have journeyed with us through some of our darkest years.
I don't want to know why. I really don't. I really don't. I don't need that. I don't need that. We've suffered enough. We have given up our right for justice. It's a price that we are paying. But if it means that we are getting our loved one home and buried, it's good enough for us. It's just give us our bodies back. That's really it. That's all I want. I only wanted Seamus back and bury him, you know.